They're calling Utah the Nvidia of states. Salt Lake City, the #1 place to do business in America. But is it really that simple? Hey everyone, I'm Willey. I live right here in the Salt Lake City metro area, and today I'm going to be reacting to this national report that's been blowing up. It's actually CNBC's deep dive into Utah's economy, the culture, and the challenges. They hit on the Olympics, the tech sector, real estate, even climate and religion. So I'm going to walk through it together with you. I'm going to pause and react along the way, kind of share what I've seen on the ground, what's accurate, and what might need a little bit of nuance.
Salt Lake City has emerged as one of America's top business and tech hubs, boasting one of the hottest job and housing markets in America, a thriving professional sports and ski scene, and a rapidly expanding population. And a lot of its success can be traced back to one major event, the 2002 Olympics.
That part is spot on. For a lot of people who grew up here or moved here in the early 2000s, the Olympics were kind of Salt Lake City's coming out party. Before that, we were kind of overlooked on the national stage. I know I didn't give much thought to Utah growing up, nor did most people from the rest of the country. The 2002 Olympics changed all of that.
Big economic growth needs a catalyst like that. Ours was the games.
But some real hurdles could stunt further growth, like climate change, which threatens Salt Lake's greatest resources, or a worsening affordable housing crisis on the horizon, and a lack of diversity.
I'm glad that they're not sugarcoating this. We've got momentum, but also some friction points. The kind of stuff locals are talking about every day. Water levels, housing prices, representation. This growth isn't smooth sailing, and if you're thinking about relocating Utah, this is the kind of stuff you should know about because it affects the local residents.
In July 2024, Salt Lake City was confirmed as the Winter Olympics host again for the 2034 Games.
Salt Lake City, Utah.
The Olympics are both a point of pride and a massive economic driver to the region. The state's GDP is estimated to rise by $3.9 billion, a total economic impact of $6.6 billion. The city already invested $287 million on infrastructure for the 2002 Games, which means that spending will be significantly less this time around. It was the 2002 Winter Olympics that many see as the catalyst for Salt Lake's rise.
2034 is a big deal, but again, it's the legacy of 2002 that people still feel. I-15 and the track system that exists today is all because of Olympic upgrades. We've hosted events every year since using the same venues. That's unheard of for an Olympic city.
A total of 10 facilities were used for the 2002 Games. All of them continued to serve the community and attract major events.
This deserves way more attention. It's not just economic, it's community-based. These facilities are used for local sports, youth events, and tourism to this day. They didn't just build facilities only for the Olympics. They certainly had the local community in mind that benefits residents to this day, and my hope is that they do the same for the upcoming 2034 Olympics.
But perhaps the most important legacy was establishing Salt Lake City as a tech hub. Until the early 90s, the economy primarily relied on agriculture and defense. But then Governor Leavitt asked Salt Lake City native and Adobe co-founder John Warnock how it could build a tech community ahead of the Olympics.
And he kind of stared at the floor for a few minutes and then kind of shouted at me, "You want me to come to Utah? If you want to come to Utah, I need engineers."
That is such a classic Utah story. Very straightforward. No flash, just action. And the state responded. Colleges doubled down on engineering and tech programs. That pipeline built what we now call the Silicon Slopes and is a major factor in the growth of Utah. For people wanting to live and work near a tech sector, Lehi and the surrounding area is exactly where you want to be.
Just 30 minutes north of Salt Lake City in the city of Lehi lies the Silicon Slopes ecosystem, a thriving network of startups and tech companies. Adobe created the foundation for the tech scene to grow, becoming the first company to put down roots in 2009.
We're very proud of that sort of pioneer heritage that we have, particularly in building what is now the Silicon Slopes ecosystem.
Businesses have capitalized on the area's in-house talent, a strong healthcare system, and good infrastructure. Now there are 1,000 companies within Silicon Slopes, including tech giants Microsoft and Oracle.
Lehi is booming. For a long time, people just passed through it on their way to Provo or Salt Lake. Now it is a destination. Glass buildings, startup culture, and sometimes some crazy traffic too. But again, this kind of success comes with a price tag. Wages are going up, sure, but so are home prices, childcare costs, and competition for talent. The growth of this area has also bled over into rural areas like Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, which frankly 10 years ago did not exist.
Utah is home to a majority of America's industrial banks, with 15 of the nation's 23 located in Salt Lake County. The banks control over $200 billion in assets within Utah.
Utah's finance scene doesn't get nearly enough attention. We've got fintech, industrial banks, credit unions, and now cryptocurrency startups all operating here. Why? Utah's laws are flexible and people trust the local economy. If there's one thing we learned from COVID, corporations are willing to relocate to areas that are pro-business, one of the many reasons why Utah has become one of the fastest growing states in recent years.
Plus, the sector supports over 93,000 jobs in Salt Lake County, a 40% growth since 2012. Even major players like Goldman Sachs, which opened an office in 2000, have expanded from 600 to nearly 3,200 employees today.
That's a 5x expansion, and they're not just back office jobs anymore. We're talking finance professionals building careers here, not just doing short stints. Couple that with attractive, world-renowned formal education programs like the University of Utah's MBA program, and that's a formula for massive growth in the banking industry.
Between 2019 and 2024, close to 30,000 multifamily apartment units were delivered in the county. That's substantially higher than in the previous 5 years.
Now, I've seen this firsthand, apartment buildings going up nonstop. You'll drive by a patch of land one month and see scaffolding the next, but again, most of these aren't affordable. They're mid to high end, usually clustered near downtown or transit lines. We continue to see a lack of inventory in the market, and if interest rates ever take an aggressive drop, you'll see housing prices increase even more.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' influence is unquestionable. It funded part of City Creek Center, a $1.6 billion mixed-use shopping complex that includes offices and apartments. Mall developer Taubman Centers is its partner on the project.
There's no question that City Creek stabilized a part of downtown that was in decline and was an engine for rejuvenating the overall downtown. And we saw the church being involved as a definite positive because they had a very long-term perspective like we did.
The LDS Church attracts around 5 million tourists a year and owns about a quarter of the downtown's $9.8 billion worth of land and buildings.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints owning 25% of the downtown area, that's one of those things that we locals understand, but outsiders might not. The church doesn't just influence the culture, it's a major landowner, developer, and financer. It's not just temples and churches, they own malls, office towers, and commercial space. That kind of footprint shapes city planning in a big way. Regardless of if you are part of the LDS Church, there's no denying it plays a major role in the development of the city.
Salt Lake City's ski scene sets it apart from other metros. 11 of Utah's 15 ski resorts are located within an hour drive of Salt Lake City, contributing to the state's $2.7 billion a year snow economy. Out-of-state skiers infused almost $2 billion, while local residents spent just under $700 million during the 2022 and 2023 season. The cash spent to ski here contributed nearly $200 million to state and local tax revenue.
Skiing is baked into Utah's identity, and it's not just for tourists. It's something locals do every weekend in the winter, but again, climate change is kind of making it harder. Resorts like Park City are innovating, but snowpack is less predictable, and the pressure on water resources is rising. The revenue from tourism to areas like Park City is so important. Legislators pay a lot of attention to anything that might affect climate change.
Billionaire Ryan Smith and his wife Ashley purchased the Utah Jazz for $1.6 billion in 2020 and shelled out another $1.2 billion to bring the NHL to Salt Lake for the first time.
We want to bring a Stanley Cup to Utah, obviously.
And the duo's big bet on sports is paying off. The valuation of the Utah Jazz has nearly doubled in just a few years. Ryan is now on a mission to reimagine Salt Lake's downtown, with plans for a jaw-dropping $3 billion entertainment and sports district.
I respect the ambition. Smith's not just investing in teams, he's investing in Salt Lake as a destination. But let's be honest, public funding for these mega projects always raises eyebrows. It's a question of priorities. Can we invest in sports and fix air quality? or improve housing? We'll see. There's always a balance between economic growth and still putting the needs of the residents first. This can be challenging to accomplish, but I think Salt Lake City is positioned better than most metro markets.
But Salt Lake City also faces some challenges, namely preparing for the Olympics. Improving transportation and existing facilities and downtown upgrades could cost the city up to $31 million.
That's actually conservative. These kinds of projects always go over budget, and we're already straining our roads and air with current growth. There's no question we'll see exponential growth in development between now and 2034. And keep in mind, Utah has seen the impacts of the Winter Olympics in the past. I'm hopeful they'll take all the lessons learned from the 2002 Olympics to shape the next 10 years of growth.
The Great Salt Lake is a major moneymaker for the local economy beyond just tourism. It's a huge player in the salt production industry and an important source for the world's magnesium. Valued at $500 million each year, it also plays a role in the fish feed industry. But it's been shrinking for decades, hitting a record low in 2022.
This is one of the biggest environmental threats Utah has ever faced, and I don't say that lightly. If you don't live here, it might sound like just another shrinking lake. But let me walk you through what's actually at stake. The Great Salt Lake isn't just a big body of water that we like to drive past on the way to Wendover. It's a $500 million a year economic engine. That includes tourism, salt production, brine shrimp harvesting, which, believe it or not, is a global fish feed export, and magnesium mining. But beyond the economy, there's a public health crisis looming. When the lake recedes, it exposes something called the lake bed, and that lake bed contains arsenic and heavy metals. Wind picks it up and carries it into our air. That's a toxic dust, literally getting into our lungs. Especially for kids and elderly and anyone with asthma, if you've lived through one of our winter inversion days here at Salt Lake, you know how bad air quality really is. This would make it even worse.
Beyond that, while key industries like business and tech are booming, diversity there remains limited. Only 2% of Utah's population is Black, one of the lowest in the nation.
That's a tough stat, but it's accurate. And if we're going to have an honest conversation about Utah's growth, we have to talk about who's actually included in that growth. Yes, only 2% of Utah's population is Black. That puts us at the bottom nationally in terms of Black representation. And it's not just about population, it's about visibility, leadership, and ownership. Think about this. Salt Lake City is a place that's been celebrated for innovation, for business, for upward mobility. But if entire communities are underrepresented in that progress, what does that say? And it's not just racial diversity. Utah still struggles with gender equity too. CNBC also mentioned that we rank among the lowest states for women-owned businesses. That's not just a data point, it's part of a larger pattern in a state where leadership, whether in business, government, or even religion, has historically skewed white and male. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't mean people in Utah aren't welcoming or kind. In fact, most people I meet here are incredibly generous. But structural diversity takes more than friendliness. It means creating spaces where people of color, women, and people from different faiths or no faith at all feel like they belong and can lead. And I'll say this, I do see things starting to shift, slowly. There are more cultural events, more community groups focused on inclusion, and some local business accelerators are making equity part of their mission, but we're still in the early stages. So yeah, when we talk about Utah being the NVIDIA of states, we also have to ask, is that opportunity pipeline open to everyone? Because a boom that only benefits some isn't a sustainable one. I'd love to hear your experience with this, whether you're a person of color living in Utah now or someone considering a move. What have you seen? What would make this state feel more inclusive to you?
Salt Lake City also has one of the lowest proportions of women-owned businesses in the country.
That tracks. Utah has consistently ranked near the bottom for women-owned businesses and for women in executive leadership roles. And it's not because women here lack ambition or talent or education. We have all of that. But the cultural and institutional barriers are still very real. A big part of this ties into Utah's broader social structure. The dominant culture here places a strong emphasis on traditional family roles, especially within the LDS church. For some women, that can be empowering and grounding, but for others, it can create an unspoken message that pursuing business, leadership, or public influence isn't the norm, or worse, that it isn't welcomed. That said, I've also seen real momentum over the last few years. Women-led startups are carving out serious space, especially in industries like wellness, tech, education, and creative services. If we want Utah's growth to be sustainable and competitive, we definitely need more women at the table. Still, cultural shifts don't happen overnight. There's still deeply embedded assumptions to unlearn, and for some women, especially those balancing careers and family in a state where large families are common, the work-life trade-offs are still steep. So when we hear about Salt Lake's booming economy, we need to look beyond the headlines. Are we building systems that support all kinds of entrepreneurs? Are we redefining success in ways that are more inclusive and more flexible? So is Salt Lake really the NVIDIA of states? In a lot of ways, yeah, we're high performance, high growth, and getting national attention. But we're also at a crossroads. The question isn't, can we grow? We already are. The real question is, how do we grow well? What do you think? Are we seeing the benefits of Utah's boom, or are you feeling priced out? Are we on the right path, or are there red flags that we need to slow down and address? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about what comes next for Salt Lake. If you're thinking about relocating to Salt Lake, make sure to reach out to me. My contact info is in the description below and pinned at the top of the channel. Would love to help you make that smooth move to Salt Lake City. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and stick around. I've got more videos coming soon on the 2034 Olympics, the housing crunch, and how local politics shape all of this. I'll see you in the next video.